Hey everybody, Elizabeth Nader back with you, the Nader Narrative and Jersey First TV. Every year is election year in New Jersey. We have the unique pleasure of having an election every single November. This year was a big one. All of the legislators down in Trenton, 120 seats, were on the ballot, as well as many local seats, many county commissioners, Board of Education, mayors, so much to talk about. So the election has passed. And the results, well, it depends on where you're coming from. Not so great for a lot of people. For others, very excited with the results, obviously. But today we want to dive into them because they're worth looking at. They certainly are worth analyzing and understanding what happened during the election. So to do that, we're bringing in Jeanette Hoffman, who is president of Marathon Public Affairs. Jeanette, you know what you're talking about when it comes to Trenton. You've been doing this a long time. Thank you for being on the show. Give me one word to describe the election.
I'd say disappointing because I think Republicans thought we would pick up more seats in the legislature than we did. Not to say that there weren't bright spots all over the state, on the local level, especially. And the county level, there are lots of places we can be really proud of our pickups, particularly in Cumberland County and Atlantic County, in local elections in Summit, Bridgewater, Westfield, Paramus. Those were all really great wins for us. And I think Republicans won by talking about local issues that were important and affordability. And that's where we win. On the legislative level, I think there were some missed opportunities. I think Republicans were a little overconfident going into the 2023 legislative elections because we had such good successes in 2021, right? We picked up 7 legislative seats. So we thought this was our opportunity, especially with a new map that was a little bit more favorable to Republicans. Maybe we could swing some more seats our way, but that didn't happen, as we know, right?
Not even close. Actually, a wash, so to speak, a neutral in the Senate, right? No pickups.
Right.
A loss of actually looks like 6 now. It was for sure certain 5, and now it looks like 6 in the Assembly. A big swing. So I want to dive into that a little bit because I think disappointing and surprising, these are some words. You know, it's interesting because Jeanette, last fall, there was this promise of a nation-wide red wave that really did not materialize. You could analyze it in other ways and say, well, it sort of did in some respects, but not to the degree that the media was sort of prepping us for. And moving to New Jersey this year, thinking about the issues and thinking about how in many ways, for most of us, so much has gotten crazy in this state that it felt like certainly if they're running on parental rights and they're running on affordability at the state level, if they're running on, look, the Democrats have gone too far, they're reaching too far, we're definitely going to see a backlash. It didn't happen. So let's analyze, first of all, the statewide. Let's talk about voter turnout, which at the end of the day, it's really all about that. What happened?
Well, and I think you said it, it's about voter turnout. And I think voter turnout in a legislative election year, it's not even 30%. I think it might have been as low as 25%, some districts even lower. So that's really sad when the vast majority of people are not even voting for who's running their legislator, who's making their laws, who's determining affordability and parental rights in New Jersey. That is sad to me, Elizabeth. So what Democrats have done, they are very good at mobilizing vote by mail. They're very good at getting their people out for early voting. They've been doing this for years. They've been taking people who only turn out in gubernatorial years and presidential years. They've been sending them vote by mail ballots every year. So they just automatically mail them back in a legislative low turnout year. That makes a huge difference. When they have 500,000 more vote by mail ballots than Republicans do in a low turnout election year, that turns the tables to their favor, and Republicans have to get better at those mechanics. And I know there is concern about potential of fraud by vote by mail, but I think Republicans need to get over that. These are the ground rules of the game right now in this election in New Jersey. When we get in control, we can change them, but we have to get in control first, right? And that means getting more people to vote on the Republican side.
100%. I mean, we've got to climb the mountain, if you will, with the tools that we have. And there is this mindset with Republicans that I'm going to vote on election day. I'm an American. I vote on election day. And, I'm not doing vote by mail. And then we know what happens with that, what can happen. The
Right.
weather can be bad. You can maybe get to a polling location. And we saw some issues again in Mercer County and some spotty issues. So maybe the poll machines are down and you have to go to work, or you just simply forget. I mean, there's so many things, Jeanette, that can
Sure.
change that, right? And so I think that definitely needs to be said and done. We have to do better at voting early, getting people to vote early, getting them to not vilify the mail-in ballot while it exists. We have to use it to our advantage. But what's going on in the psychology? And I'll have you guess to that. For Republicans just to not show up at all. I mean, are they not angry enough? Are they not concerned enough? Or has it been so long since we've had Republican rule in this state that they forget what it's like to have different people in charge?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of voter apathy. And let's face it, there's a million more Democrats in New Jersey than Republicans. So we need to really turn those unaffiliated voters to vote for
Yeah.
common sense policies, more affordable policies. And I'll say it, we could do better at candidate recruitment in some of these targeted districts. I think Democrats did a good job. And, let's face it, there's only 5 or 6 really swing competitive districts in the entire state. Out of the 40 legislative districts, there's only about 5 or 6 that are really truly competitive. So in those districts, Democrats were able to take really popular legislative officials that were either former assembly members or, sitting senators themselves, who have really distinguished themselves with the public record that as Democrats ran away from Governor Murphy. These were not people who were in lockstep with the governor, right?
Yeah.
In these competitive districts like Bingo Pal, he really came to the middle. He, came out against the governor's unaffordable energy master plan. He talked about the economy. He talked about taxes. He was kind of the Democrat that you weren't sure was a Republican or a Democrat. You just knew he was your local senator who was around all the time. He has a civic association. He has a food pantry. The Democrats did a good job in those competitive districts of recruiting candidates that everybody knew. And I'm not sure Republicans have done such a good job in some of these more competitive districts. So I think that's something we can improve upon.
I think that's a great point. And the Gopal race is quite indicative. I mean, he actually, as a result of his coattails, took out the 2 assembly positions that were Republicans. And now that whole district is now solidly Democrat. When we look at the Gopal race, there was a lot of money spent, a lot of money from the outside, so to speak, right? What some would call dark money. And the same is true with Ed Durr's race. Where's that money coming from in general? Who's putting their finger on the scale?
There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money. Democrats have been in power for the legislature, gosh, almost over 20 years now. So money flows to power. Lobbyist money goes to they have different PACs. George Norcross now claims in South Jersey, the power boss claims he was retired. He's not retired. I'll give you guys a hint. There was this Jersey Freedom PAC that was funding these invisible candidates, these phantom candidates that were supposedly conservatives to take the votes away from the Ed Durr race and Chris Del Borello in District 4, the Republicans. Guess what? This Jersey Freedom PAC, the attorney was the attorney for George Norcross, the Democrats. So listen, we know this. Democrats are always up to their usual tricks. They're going to have money. They're going to have dark money. They're going to have PACs. The longer they are in charge, the more money they will amass. Senator Gopal's race in District 11, that's where I live, $6 million at least. That's what we know of, right? I mean, the most expensive
incredible
state legislative race in history.
What did you think, since that's your district? I have to ask you about the multiple mailers that were put out by a Hugan funded PAC against Gopal, tying him to Bill Spadia. It's a curious approach. I'm really curious what you think about that, Jeanette.
Well, I'm friends with Bill, as you know, and I kind of had a laugh at it. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Who is this? I guess it's supposed to. So my husband's a Democrat and I'm a Republican, and we get everything in our house. So it's like a really curious case study. And sometimes I couldn't tell who the mail was coming to, the R or the D, right? It was just a whole big mess. I would have rather Bob Pugin spend the money on a solid vote by mail program in Monmouth County than on these mailers comparing Vin to Bill Spadia. I don't know. Was that supposed to make Democrats want to stay home? Because it didn't. So,
Right.
you
Right.
know, it was a curious tactic there. And I think, Chairman Hugan put out his own memo saying how the state party needs to focus on vote by mail and early voting in the next election.
We should have done that a few elections ago, but yes. But instead, these interesting mailers. Now, it's possible. It's possible that made more people vote for Gopal. You don't know. It's interesting, but I think overall, it's a little insight into 2025 and what the attacks will be against the possible gubernatorial, nominees or candidates. So I think it's just a little bit of a preview there. But that was a strange thing in that district. And then, of course, when we go down to Ed Durer, the moment that he beat Sweeney, which was shocking to really everyone, I think.
Yeah.
I think they said to each other, the power brokers, all right, we're taking him out. And it didn't seem like the NJGOP did a lot to shore up Durer. In fact, they allowed him to be primaried. How much did that hurt him?
Yeah, I don't think, listen, I think the party was very divided down there. I don't think, some of the comments that Senator Durer had made in the past had helped him. I don't think it was a very united effort down there in South Jersey, in the 3rd district and also in the 4th district, because there was a primary there. And I don't think that the party was very united for Chris Del Barello as well. So in 3 and 4, I think having a united party for both of those candidates in those districts will help, because let's face it, in District 3, Joe Biden lost that district by 16 points. That should be a solid Republican district. So lesson learned for next time in winning that district back. It should be in solid Republican territory.
We need more party unity. Primaries are not, I don't think primaries are necessarily a bad thing, but when we wound each other to the point where we can't recover in time to win in the general, I'm not sure that we've achieved anything. I noticed some numbers. I'm Morris County, and I noticed some pretty scary numbers, even with the wins here, with the Assembly and Senate wins, how tight the races were. I wonder if that's a trend of things to come, and what has been a red county. Some of the towns are not. Our town has gone blue, and it's been a struggle to even bring it back to purple. But the county overall has usually delivered in the red column. These were very tight races for Bucco, Barranco, all of them. Are we seeing a trend?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with voter turnout in this low turnout year. And it's funny because I've been doing this for a while, and years ago, before vote by mail, usually a low turnout year benefited Republicans, because the Republicans were the ones who were solid, turnout on election day, would vote. They were motivated. And then the high turnout years, that's when the Democrats got their busloads of people to the polls. Right. Not with vote by mail, because the Democrats had it down. They have that system down of, those votes go out in the mail. So, I think when you have 22%, 25% turnout in a certain district, the vote margins can get scary for Republicans who are used to, having big turnout numbers in Morris County. I was on News 12 election night, and I couldn't believe, I was watching the Morris County numbers come in, and I was texting Rosemary. I was like, "What's going on with Bucco's race?" But fortunately, he pulled it out. But it was looking a little scary there.
The numbers were definitely off for longer than they should have been. So there's something that's strange, and I don't look. It's not a mystery, like you said. It comes back to vote by mail, but we keep saying that, Jeanette. And yet no one has really stepped forward. It takes money, doesn't it? I mean, it's definitely something that the left has been funding for a long time, which is any get out the vote, even prior to vote by mail being codified into law here. But it takes money. Do we need a change in leadership in order to make this happen? Who's going to finally embrace this?
I'm not sure. I don't, I haven't seen anyone step up and say, "Hey, pick me. I want to do this." So I'm not going to answer that question until, there's, and it's usually the candidate who's running for, traditionally, the Republican State Committee. I've been an executive director there before. It's usually the choice of the party standard bearer. So, we'll see. I expect there'll be a very vigorous Republican primary in 2025. And who chooses the party leader going forward.
Right. We
But
can't wait though. We can't
no,
wait.
because 2024 is around the corner, and
Yeah.
we'll have a open U.S. Senate seat. Well, potentially open. I mean, Bob Menendez is running, but does anyone
Right.
think Bob Menendez is going to win? I don't
No
think.
one, I don't think anyone does. Well, neither of us do, but now we have Tammy Murphy in that race, and that's another interview. So we've got to, I mean, that really is, it's very interesting what's happening. I wonder how you feel about the issue of parental rights. Now, this seems to be the issue of the decade. It seems to be, well, we know it's the issue that got Youngkin in as governor when Jack Ciattarelli couldn't go over the finish line here. He was running on taxes, and Youngkin ran on really parental rights. So it's been a hot issue and something that is an 80-20 issue. We know recent studies show 80% really of New Jerseyans agree broadly with the issue of parental rights. So what happened? It resonated at the Board of Education, didn't resonate at the higher levels?
Yeah, so that was curious to me. I think it does resonate at the Board of Education levels. Absolutely. I mean, people are running on that issue. They're challenging other board members based on that issue, and I think they should. And I think it's really important. I live in Monmouth County. I'm right around the corner from Middletown, where
Yeah.
Matt Placken is taking people to court over this. I think it's really shameful. Parents need to know what is going on with their children in their schools. It's a basic right. It's unbelievable to me that this is happening. However, I think when you're talking about this low turnout election, if Murphy was on the ticket, it would be a different story because it's his policy.
Right.
But these legislative candidates in a low turnout year, they were able to differentiate themselves from Murphy. And I think, seniors are also voting. They don't necessarily care about parental rights as much in a low turnout year. So I think the economy, had to be first and foremost, and parental rights had to be secondary.
So we keep running on it. It's still an issue. It depends on, and you just keep coming back to the same thing, which you're so right. It's turnout. So let's move forward now a little bit to lame duck, because election's over. We know what we have for next year. There's still a lot of work to be done. Lame duck always scares me. I always think that's when some really bad ideas make it over the finish line quickly. And I've read a few of the things I'm concerned about having to do with education is, finding more teachers by taking away a competency test. Are you kidding me? By taking away the graduation test to make sure the students are competent. We keep moving the goal line so we look like we're performing. There's a lot with energy. What should we be worried about with lame duck?
The things that scare me about lame duck are not the things I'm thinking of. It's a thing that comes out on a Thursday and gets voted on a Monday, because that's how quickly they ram things through. And there's something, we know the Orsted deal was, they pulled out. That deal should be dead. Murphy saying he's going to get the money back. Orsted says, nope, read the fine print. We don't owe you anything. So that's $500,000 lost. $500 million, loss of New Jersey ratepayer money. I know Senator Smith potentially has a bill in to do something with offshore wind. I don't see that issue. I think the Murphy Democrats feel emboldened on that issue to continue offshore wind. That land is already federally leased in the ocean. So they're going to put that out to bid again, right? That fight is not over. Don't think that just because Orsted pulled out, somebody else is going to rebid for that. So, that whole energy issue, I mean, we really need to be strong and fight Governor Murphy's energy mandates, because they're really expensive and they're really crazy. I mean, mandating the ban of gas-powered cars by 2035, starting in 2027. I mean, the full ban is 2035, but they're mandating like how many gas cars can be sold starting in 2027. Can you imagine that? Like,
I can't.
Government trying to market how many cars you can sell in New Jersey. Well, that's going to spike up the price of any used gas car, because that's supply and demand. The supply is going to be so limited. It's just bonkers. I mean, talk about making the state more unaffordable. So, we can't, just because, the election didn't turn out the way we wanted, we can't, let our guard down here, because, these Democrats, their margins are bigger. So they're going to have more power to ram these things through. And they do now have a veto-proof majority.
Which is crazy. And a lot of this legislation, Murphy will be long gone. I guess Tammy may be in charge where, in her role, it seems like that's sort of an anointing rather than an election. But anyway, he'll be long gone when we are dealing with the results of his energy policy, from gas stoves to the cars to the what's happening offshore, which you are totally right. That is not over at all, not even close. Is there hope as we wrap up here? Because Jeanette, I just love your view on everything, although it sometimes depresses me a little bit, but we're going to keep fighting. It's reality. Is there hope in 2025? Are we able to swing back to actually having a Republican governor who could use the power of that position to right a lot of these wrongs, even if he doesn't have, or she, a legislative slate that's on their side? Do we have a chance at swinging the governorship back to a Republican?
There's always hope. There's always a chance. And I think now more than ever, I mean, after 2 administrations of Phil Murphy, how could people not see the need to go back to common sense? I mean, people are talking about moving to Delaware and Florida because of the taxes being so much lower. I mean, somebody's got to run on common sense and being fiscally conservative and lowering taxes. It's just got to be all about the economy and doing these nightmare unaffordable policies that is implemented, and the legislature is just a rubber stamp for. So I do think 2025 is going to be a much brighter year for us.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be the year of common sense. That's what we're hoping. So here's my idea for our next show, Jeanette. I think you and your husband should come on and we should do a little Republican Democrat. You guys are married. How do you see this? You work in the industry. I think that sounds like a great show. What do you think?
I would agree to it. I have to check with him. I'm not sure if he's going to sign up for that, Elizabeth. But.
All right. Well, I'll give you some time to work on it. Maybe we can slate that for the new year. See if you can convince him. Jeanette, thank you so much. We really appreciate everything you do and your insights. And hopefully someone will hear the pleas, someone out there who has the ability to start focusing on what we need in order to have these elections be a little more balanced. Jeanette, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. It's great to be with you today.
All right, great. And to my audience, guys, we'll see you next week.